All right, we are live on Facebook. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions during tonight's town hall, feel free to comment on the post on Facebook or post in the chat in Zoom if you're joining us on Zoom. And first, just again, welcome. And Karla, thank you so much for taking some time tonight to really let voters learn more about who you are and why they should consider you as a candidate. We really appreciate it.
Yep, and thank you for hosting.
Absolutely. So first, could you start off and just share with us a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, and what childhood was like for you?
So I was born in Indiana, and till I was 4, I lived in a very rural area of Indiana in the farmlands. And when I was 8, we moved to southern Indiana, to Boonville. But every summer, I would go back and I would visit family friends who had farms in central Indiana. And I would play hide and seek in the cornfields, and I got to play in the corn bins when the corn was low. And I got to hold baby pigs. And I also remember from that time really learning a good work ethic and connecting work to rewards. You know, if you want something, you need to work for it. I always enjoyed going at county fair time, and the farm families that I would stay with would give me chores to do so that I could earn money to go to the fair. And some of this was easy, like washing cars, and some of it was really hard, like I pulled beans out of a cornfield to earn money to go to the county fair, to ride the rides, and to eat the good food.
So could you share with us, was there someone in your life that you feel really helped shape your worldview or who really impacted your values?
Yes. So the reason we moved several times as I was growing up was because my father was an American Baptist minister. So I'm a preacher's kid. And he, growing up in that household, and going to church every week, twice a week, twice on Sundays when we lived in Indiana, I really got all of those Christian values instilled in me of loving your neighbor as yourself. And my dad was a very kind and empathetic person, and those are the most important values and lessons that I learned from him, that I still, those are the most important values that I hold for myself, is kindness and empathy and being a good neighbor.
Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like your faith has really impacted you. Could you share more about how that experience has shaped you?
Yes. So growing up in that church environment, my dad also enjoyed coming up with fun events for our church, and my favorite part of being brought up in the church like that was the sense of community and helping each other out and holding each other up. And my dad instilled community by just coming up with fun things for us to do together as a church family, and that really bonded us all together. And I look forward to the time when we can all start attending events in Central Illinois again, for that sense of community and having fun together.
For sure. I completely agree. Could you share with us a little bit about your college experience? Where did you attend college, and what impact did that experience have on you?
Right. So I finished high school in junior high and high school in Moline, Illinois. And then I attended Illinois Wesleyan University. And I have to say that from the very first time I walked on the Wesleyan campus, it just felt like home to me. I hadn't even met anybody yet in the theater department. I walked on that campus and it just felt like home. So Bloomington was my home for 4 years, and I am happy to have been back here for 10 years. But my time at Illinois Wesleyan, that is really where I learned to collaborate, and I learned to use my creativity in different ways with problem solving. If anybody out there listening or watching has ever worked in theater, and especially if you've worked backstage and done props, there's always a problem to solve, and you have to work with all different kinds of personalities, and I just love the collaborative process of that. And Illinois Wesleyan is also where I figured out my love for painting for the theater, for scenic painting.
That sounds like an excellent college experience.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that you had the opportunity to be a union member. Can you share what your experience with labor rights is?
Yes. So I went to graduate school at University of Illinois, and I have an MFA in scenic design for theater. And when I was finished with grad school, I moved out to the New York area, and within less than a year of graduating, I was accepted into United Scenic Artists, Local 829, and I started working on painting scenery for film and television and theater. And I just loved it. And within the first year of being in the union, I was on a picket line, and we were striking the union scene shops that provided scenery for the Broadway houses. And even though I was brand new to the union and I was 26 years old, I was invited to be part of the negotiating committee. And it was such an honor to be included in that process, and such a great, really great learning experience for me. And I also, really appreciate the benefits that a union gives you. The wages, the breaks, the safety training. I had really excellent safety training when I was in New York, and I have not since working in the union have I had such excellent safety training.
That's awesome. It sounds like you have experience at the negotiations table. How do you think that experience has really prepared you for working in the Capitol?
Well, every time you have a negotiation, you have to gather input from all different sources. You need to listen to people. When I was negotiating for our union contract, I made a lot of phone calls, and I talked to a lot of people about how they felt about, extending the workday and nudging the numbers this way or that way, and should we have an afternoon break, or is it okay to extend the afternoon workday? Just all of those things. And working in Springfield, I want to listen to everybody. I want people to reach out to me. I want to be available and responsive, and really take into account everybody's point of view, so we can make the best decision for people who live right here in Central Illinois.
We had a brief break in our live stream on Facebook here. I think it should be back up and going. Sorry about that. I know that there are several issues that you feel very passionate about. Can you share with us a time or a few times where you were really moved to take action?
Right. Well, if you've seen any of my printed material, I refer to myself as an activist and an advocate. And my first experience at a really big moment of activism was in 1993. I went with a few friends to Washington, D.C. to attend the gay and lesbian gay rights march on Washington. And I had never experienced anything like that before. And also the whole time I was there, looking at people's signs and what they were asking for and what they wanted change in legislation, it was really eye-opening for me at that time, realizing just how many rights LGBTQ people did not have, like very few rights at all. So that's really where it started. And then a few years later, I really started working on the marriage equality issue. My partner at the time was from the UK, and we were fighting for marriage equality because there was no way for her to get a green card to stay with me. So I definitely hold a place in my heart for people who are affected by family separation when it comes to immigration and asylum issues. I think we could do better as a country in trying to keep families together and to look at the whole picture and not just a narrow view of a person's situation.
Sure. Yeah, I completely agree. I know that one of the other pieces that you've talked about with me that kind of really moved you to action was the Affordable Care Act and really our, struggle for healthcare for, everyone.
Right. So I spent 10 years living in London, where I was fortunate to experience national health care. And my partner in London had diabetes, and because she had a chronic illness, all of her medication was free. And when I had a baby, it didn't cost me anything. And I had nurses come to my house afterwards to check on me. It didn't cost me anything. The whole time I was pregnant, my dental care was free while I was pregnant and for 6 months after giving birth. All of these things should be more universally available. I see healthcare as a human right. And now we're realizing how many people are losing their healthcare because they've lost their jobs. Having your healthcare exclusively tied to your job doesn't work for everybody. So yes, when the Affordable Care Act was in the process of being passed, I was back here in the United States, and I was making calls and emails and signing online petitions and trying to make sure that my representatives knew that I wanted them to vote for this, that I supported this. So that was an earlier one once I was back in the States. And then the next thing that happened that was pretty big, that really motivated me to stay involved and to pay attention to what legislation was being proposed and how they were talking about it, was Sandy Hook. And the reason that Sandy Hook got to me is that my son my son was in first grade when Sandy Hook happened. So it's still, it's like a gut punch when I think about babies being mowed down by someone, by a firearm intended for military use. So I want to say that I absolutely support responsible gun ownership. I absolutely, the Second Amendment, it's part of our Constitution. But I don't think that should mean guns for everybody who wants them. I think we need to take a lot more care about who has the guns, and the person who committed the atrocity at Sandy Hook, he got that gun out of his mother's gun safe. His mother was the one who owned those guns. They weren't his. And a lot of the tragedies, not all of them, but a lot of the tragedies that have happened could have been avoided if we had tighter restrictions on who has access to guns, and better laws about safe gun storage. And that's also something that, now that everybody's home all the time, is still being perpetuated, that children, if you hide a gun somewhere in the house and it's not locked up, kids will find it. They find the Halloween candy that you hide, they're going to find the gun too. So yes, gun safety legislation has really motivated me, and I've been working on that. I've been working on that ever since.
Thank you so much for sharing, how that really impacted you. So I know that, after Sandy Hook, one of the big things that really motivated me to really get involved and pay attention was the 2016 election. And I don't know if you have, anything you might want to share about that time, things you were doing, how that motivated you as well.
Yes. So you just reset for a minute here. Yeah, so I'll admit I cried a lot the night of the 2016 election. I couldn't believe that that we ended up with the president that we did. And it just made me question everything. And it made me start looking at things more closely, like why don't we have more Democrats on the ballot in McLean County? How did this happen? Why did we not have enough support to elect the person that I thought that we should be electing for president? Now, Illinois voted for Hillary. It wasn't just Illinois, but it really did open my eyes to the whole structure of how people get elected. So McLean and Tazewell County, we have Democratic parties. Honestly, prior to 2016, no one had ever invited me to a county Democratic Party. So really, no matter where you live in the United States, that's step one. Every county in the United States should have a Democratic Party, and you should have meetings where you get together and you build friendships, and you build community, and within those friendships and community, you support each other, and that's really where I started to get involved more and more. I figured out, where it was. I didn't know where the meetings were. I didn't know when they met, but I figured it out. I found out, and I went, And then from there, it was, indivisible training. And then it was, making posters and going to protests. And I remember making posters in the basement of somebody's house with Nikita and Jody, and I wish I could remember who else was there. And that's where we built friendships and community, and supported each other as our friends and our colleagues started to run for office. And that's when I really, really got into it, when people that I had been working with and building community with decided to step up and run for office. And I was so happy to start working with them and for them and knocking on doors. I had no idea how much I would enjoy knocking on doors, but I really do. And I really miss it. I hope we'll get back to it before November 3rd. But if we don't, then we'll figure out a different way to talk to people about the issues.
For sure. And I know, that you've done a lot of work in partnership with several groups, including Black Lives Matter and the League of Women Voters. And I don't know if you want to add anything in about your experiences there.
Yeah. So, in that first year in 2017, really, I want to shout out to Jody Slothauer for leading the way with Voices of Reason, and having that place as a hub for our community to post progressive events that were going on, or even just posting community educational opportunities. I really started paying attention to them more and more. And I especially enjoyed going to the League of Women Voters Drinks and Dialogue. That was great. And I met, some new people there, and did some volunteer work with League of Women Voters. And I really like it a lot. They are a nonpartisan organization. And I really, I learned a lot at the Drinks and Dialogue. And I look forward to a time when we can have those again, and when I have time to attend them. And regarding Black Lives Matter, through my church, which is the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bloomington Normal, in 2017 I organized a social justice fair. And that's really where I met some people who work with Black Lives Matter. And so the social justice fair, the idea there was, let's bring everybody together in one place who's doing good things in our community. My goal was to sort of showcase to residents of McLean County and the surrounding areas, because we had some groups from around Peoria come over, about the resources that are available, and also volunteer opportunities for social service organizations. But what came out of that more than community education was collaboration. And so what we built from there was a collaborative group where we would get together and talk about what are we working on and how can we help each other. So in the last year, I've been very involved with the initiative to end cash bail. And now our local group is part of a statewide coalition for pre-trial justice. So it's not just about ending cash bail, it's about changing the way we look at whether a person needs to be incarcerated, needs to be in jail before they go to trial, so that it's risk-based. and that we're not putting people in jail just because they can't pay bail.
I know you touched on a little bit, how much you really loved participating in campaigns. And, we've had a few conversations where you've mentioned you really enjoyed heading to union halls and really speaking to union members there. And if you wanted to share any of your experiences really meeting the rank and file, talking with them.
Absolutely. So when you run for a state candidacy, apparently there's a tornado warning. Okay, I don't see any wind outside my window, and there's no siren here. So thank you for that note that so apparently there's a tornado warning in our area. So if you live in McLean County and Bloomington Normal, please pay attention. I do not hear a siren, so I'm going to carry on. I was starting to say, when you run for a state office, you get sent a lot of questionnaires asking you if you want to for endorsements. And the very first one I received was from the AFL-CIO, and I was so excited to fill that one out because as a former union member, AFL-CIO is the kind of the umbrella organization for us. And so I do have the endorsement from the AFL-CIO. And when I go to union halls, I just love talking to people about their jobs and what they do. And it's so interesting to me, and really speaks to my own feeling that that we're all connected. We're all part of a big interconnected web, and we all need each other. And for instance, when I was at the Labor Hall in Pekin, I talked to some people who worked at a windmill farm. I didn't know that was a job. That was interesting. I talked to some people who were working on a bridge on the Mississippi River, and I asked them, so tell me what are you doing? And like, they're welding on the bridge. And I just love hearing about people's work, because it's all important.
So what would you say really drives you or motivates you to campaign?
Well, first and foremost, I want people representing me who I feel really represent my values. And if they don't always represent my values, I want them to listen to me, to really listen to what I have to say, and to take my opinion and my own personal situation into consideration. I have experienced many times that people who do represent me, either in Springfield or in Washington, D.C., that very often they're just voting the party line, and I don't feel like they're really taking my views into consideration. And for the people of Central Illinois, I want to listen to everybody's point of view, and I do want to take everybody's point of view into consideration when we're making decisions.
So obviously, besides winning, what is something that you really hope to accomplish with your campaign?
Well, a slogan that we came up with really early on, right after I announced my candidacy, was Unite 88. Let's bring us all together. Part of that is that my opponent is from Morton, and a lot of people in Tazewell County know who he is because he's been the representative for 20 years. Now the district lines have changed a few times. So especially in the Bloomington area and in McLean County, a lot of people don't know who their representative is. So I would like for people to know who their representative is. That's one thing. And another thing is, I would like for us all to really recognize how we all need all of the moving parts for everything to work. You know, we need the people in the grocery stores. We need the people hanging, you know, securely tied to bridges while they're welding. You know, we need people fixing our roads, and we need all of the companies that supply all of the materials. We need the colleges. We need the big companies like State Farm and Country. And so I want us all to really appreciate each other and recognize each other's value. Win or lose, I would like for everybody to be a little more united.
So bringing it back home a little bit closer, I know that you have a teenage son. I had the opportunity to meet him over video one time. Can you really share with us how the COVID-19 crisis has impacted your family and your work life?
Right. So, so my son is doing his schoolwork from home. I'm not sure how much schoolwork he actually does, but he spends a lot of time on his laptop. And my husband has been working from home since the day before the schools let out. And one thing that's impacted us is that my husband has had an organ transplant. He had a kidney and pancreas transplant 4 years ago. So he takes immunosuppressants every day. So one impact for us is that he doesn't go out at all except to go for walks. Sometimes he'll go for a ride in the car with me, but he doesn't go anywhere. I'm still getting all the groceries, but I have to be really, 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 really careful. So I do feel very strongly that as we start to slowly open up, that we need to be aware that not everybody has the same resiliency, and that there are a lot of people who are much more susceptible to dying from this disease than from it being a mild and inconvenient illness.
And again, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing with us today. I've been checking Facebook and Zoom here. We don't have any questions right now. Is there anything else you would like to let voters know?
Well, the main thing is that I'm here. I'm available. I'm accessible. You can find on my website many, many links to different organizations that are providing support for anything you might be experiencing during this pandemic. I have resources at home on paper that I can share with you. I can look it up quickly. You can reach me by Facebook. You can go through my website and message me. My phone number is published on Facebook and on my website. You can call me. You can text me, and I'll do my best to answer as soon as I can. And if you ever ask me something and I don't know the answer, I will find it out for you. And I want to say one more thing about me as a person. My friend Chuck got this shirt for me when he was visiting Seattle, and I have loved purple my entire life. So choosing a color for my campaign was a no-brainer. It had to be purple.
And I know that while we're not able to have events in person, We've been doing this town hall series. Is there a way, if a voter wanted to engage with you, could they jump on a Zoom call with you? What options do they have?
Right. So my campaign has purchased a Zoom account for as long as we need it. We're just paying by month until we don't need it anymore. We might need it the whole time, but I have this Zoom account, and I'm very happy to set up a meeting if somebody wants to talk very privately about something. Or I was hoping to do events and sort of a roundtable discussions. So I'm definitely interested in especially reaching out to people who work in agriculture in Tazewell County, because that's not something, because I do live in Bloomington and I do live in town. That's not something that I know a lot about yet, but I want to learn more. And I was hoping by this time to have made some of these connections. So I'm hoping that we can have some perhaps small group discussions about issues that are of concern to our farmers and our residents who live in the smaller towns and the more rural areas, especially in Tazewell County.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for sharing with us this evening. We currently don't have any other questions.
Okay.
So yes, I don't know if you have anything you want to wrap up with.
Let me just check my notes and see. I know there were a few things that I thought I was going to talk about, and I kind of skipped over it. Well, okay. So one thing that I forgot to kind of wrap up when I was talking about my childhood in rural Indiana is that because I have that lived experience, I appreciate farm life. It's a beautiful thing. It's just delightful to experience as a child. And I also, as I've gotten older, and I've seen my friends in Indiana still have the family farm. It's one of the historical family farms in Indiana. And I've also seen how difficult it is to maintain the farm equipment and to keep up, and really to compete as a family farm against the trend of corporate farming and conglomerate farming. But again, I lived in a small town in southern Indiana for 8 years, and I also appreciate small town life, being able to walk to the library and walk to the town square and, go into the general store and buy candy. I had all of those experiences. So I enjoy visiting our small towns. They're delightful places.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for taking the time this evening. Thank you everyone for joining us or watching the replay. And we hope to see you again at next week's town hall. Thanks, Karla.
Yes, and thank you, Kelsey, for hosting.